Hello, folks. Welcome to a new episode of the Sox Machine podcast, part of the Foul Territory Network. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and we're recording this episode Monday night as the Chicago White Sox have an off day after winning their series against the Cleveland Guardians. Our previous episode featured a lot of interviews from the weekend, and it was a very festive weekend for the White Sox. Ozzie Guillen having his jersey retired. We heard from Will Venable, Mark Burley, Chris Getz, Colson Montgomery, Hagan Smith, White Sox pitching coach Zach Bove, lots of interviews. So if you want to hear directly from the White Sox, check out our previous episode. But in this episode, we're going to be recapping and providing further analysis of what happened this past weekend between the White Sox and the Guardians as the White Sox extend their lead in the American League Central. Look out behind, but here come the Detroit Tigers again. What's up with that? We'll talk about the Tigers run and also looking two performances. One, Anthony Kay. Is he becoming more valuable as the season progresses? And while Colson Montgomery had a big home run on Sunday, why is he having so many troubles facing right-handed pitching? And at the end of the show, we'll preview this week's series between the Chicago White Sox and the Cincinnati Reds as the White Sox homestand continues. And joining me in this episode is Sox Machine's managing editor. It's Jim Margalus. And hello, Jim. First of all, great to see you this past weekend with the Sox Machine 20th anniversary. I had a blast. Did you have a good time?
I did. The weather was terrific. If anything, we
Cooperated.
could maybe used a single cloud on Saturday would have helped because that was a lot of direct sunlight. But otherwise, like temperatures in the 80s. Yeah, no threat of rain. That all showed up the next day. We didn't get the Davis Martin weather, the big rain delay. So it was terrific for people to stop by, even if they were just dropping by before going in the Ozzie Guillen jersey line before the
Yeah.
giveaway. But yeah, you did a great job planning it. Plenty of food to
Thank
go
you.
around, plenty of beer. A lot of people stepped up to help. The bums with their amazing packing job on a what do you call it? Standard SUV, packing so much in there, just like a clown car in terms of how much tailgating equipment. You can see that they've done this before. So, yeah, that was awesome. So, yeah, it was a great time and good to see a win as well. We've had some bad luck, I think, when it comes to the home meetups over the years. So the fact that they fell behind 2-0 and then had an inning where everybody was contributing and it wasn't so much a game where you say, well, at least we had fun. Like everybody in the
Yeah.
stadium, I think, had fun on Saturday.
Yeah. A quick shout out to Baloney, part of the Chicago Sports Bums. Peter, thank you so much for volunteering, my friend. You were the MVP of that weekend, really helping us out, especially as I was returning from San Francisco for a family emergency. So, again, thank you to everyone that stopped by this past weekend. And let's talk about that big series win for the Chicago White Sox, Jim, against the Cleveland Guardians as they lost that first game 8-2, but really rallied late against Gavin Williams and the Guardians bullpen to win 6-3. That was a scoreless game through 5 innings, and Anthony Kay was strong again. We'll talk more about Anthony Kay later in the show. And then, of course, on Sunday with all the rain, and ended up winning that game 5-3. And what's so fascinating to me about this series win, Jim, is that they did this with Noah Schultz and that whole gaffe on Friday night with Will Venable accidentally yanking him from the game early. And Mother Nature deciding, you know what? I don't want to see Davis Martin struggle again. So I'm just going to wash out his start after an inning. Like, to win a series in which two of your starting pitchers don't make it more than an inning and you still win the series, that's remarkable to me. What do you take away from this series win for the White Sox?
Yeah, I think it was a classically, or I guess 2026 classically feisty effort that we've seen, and that makes hard to count the White Sox out. Also, I think you're seeing with the Guardians that the offense isn't that great.
Yeah.
Even with the upgrades they try to make, and Reese Hoskins did come through with the homer on Saturday, so you can kind of see the proof of concept there. But the young hitters are hitting well enough, but certainly you don't have prime Jose Ramirez in the middle of it all. Like he's been moving around as he comes back from the hamate injury, and with hand injuries, those can linger. So you wouldn't necessarily expect him to come back full strength, but given all of the trauma Jose Ramirez has induced for White Sox fans and White Sox personnel over the years, that you don't believe it until you see it yourself. The pitching for Cleveland is good, but I think you could see that the bullpen, especially Saturday, when it comes to Holderman, he's been having a pretty good season, but maybe not the tremendously imposing arm. And then you have a bullpen game after a game where they had to use some of their relievers on Saturday to have a 1 inning start for both starters, kind of being a big equalizer, especially if you're not sure what you're going to get from Davis Martin after the first inning. He's had starts where he contains the struggles of the first inning. He's had other starts where he gets knocked out of the second inning because it's not any better. So as much as it might have hurt the White Sox to have a second 1 inning start or such a limited start, it was a little bit of an equalizer, not knowing exactly what Martin was going to provide and leaving it all open to kind of a scramble and chaos. And I think the White Sox bullpen, while it's been worked, I think is deep enough and balanced enough, righty and lefty, to be able to sequence some relievers in order to where you don't have to necessarily, even if you have fears about somebody being tired or overexposed, you can minimize the looks. You can maybe move them earlier in a game, later in a game, depending on whether the lead has grown or whether it's a deficit now. So yeah, they had to scramble. Wasn't what they had drawn out, but I think you are seeing, at least with the pitching staff, the depth to have counter moves when Plan A doesn't go like anybody thought.
Yeah, maybe the MVP of this weekend for the White Sox was the bullpen, because like David Sandlin went as far as he could, Jim, and he got pushed beyond what he was even pitching in Charlotte, right? I think you made that comment that pitch count and innings, like the White Sox pushed them harder than they did in Charlotte.
That was the big concern for me. It was, one, it was a mistake by Venable, second visit. We were watching it and saying like second visits, because first you look down and you see him coming out, then you look for the trainer and the trainer's not moving. And you think like, oh, this is a Bevington-esque gaffe. And Sandlin, for him to have to come in, he was dealing with a lower body injury in Charlotte. He had been limited to 4 innings, and 4 innings was kind of aspirational, because when I saw him pitch in Nashville, he pitched, I think, 3 1/3, and was the command was starting to loosen on him by the 4th inning. The stuff was still good in terms of velocity, but the walks, that's when the walks started to arrive. So to see him be pushed after a short warm-up, I think that was the biggest danger that Venable. There was the embarrassment factor, but it's not like they were bringing in somebody who's a rubber arm major league, like a Tyler Alexander guy last year. We saw him in that role. It wasn't Tyler Alexander. It was David Sandlin, who is a rookie who struggled in his looks as a rookie and who has been protected at Charlotte. So to have him go beyond what he had been throwing incurred quite a bit of risk. And I know that Venable was really hard on himself, and I imagine that's the reason why, because his mistake could have been compounded if something grabbed Sandlin as he's pitching because he wasn't warmed up. Could have gone a lot worse than it did with just having the humiliation contained to one game.
Yeah, because if you don't push Sandlin an extra inning, does that grand slam happen? Right? Are you still in a tight, low scoring game later on? Like I just think he trying to compound his mistakes. It's kind of that gambler's fallacy, Jim. I screwed up, so the only way I could come out ahead is double down, and just made things a lot worse for the White Sox on Friday. That might have been one of the worst managed games by Will Venable during his tenure with the White Sox, but they were able to figure out the next 2 games. So to his credit, to the White Sox credit, their ability to move on very quickly has been demonstrated this season. And with the White Sox winning this series, we got a chance to see Hagan Smith. Very Hagan Smith outing. As you've been writing the minor keys, if you haven't seen Hagan Smith pitch this year, White Sox fans, and if Sunday was the first time you've seen Hagan Smith,
you've seen Hagan Smith pitch.
Yes, that is the Hagan Smith experience. Man, I don't know what happened between Arkansas and with the White Sox, because I felt like he had better control of command in the college game. Maybe I was just deceived, but that is the Hagan Smith experience. It is such good stuff that it's very difficult to hit, But man, is it easy for opposing hitters to lay off. So it's a lot of walks, a lot of strikeouts, but he did pitch 2 scoreless innings and he didn't give up a hit. He will just get himself into trouble. So we'll see what the upcoming outings are for Hagan Smith. But Jim, let's take a look at the American League Central standings. And as we record this, the Minnesota Twins are currently playing the Baltimore Orioles. And for the Chicago White Sox winning this series, they extend their series lead. Their standings lead in the division. They are 61 and 56. They have a 3.5 game lead over the Detroit Tigers, and they have a 4 game lead over the Guardians. And as I mentioned, as we record this, the Twins are playing the Baltimore Orioles. The Twins are 4 games back. And for the series this week, you have Twins versus Orioles. That's your Monday through Wednesday series. Tuesday through Thursday, very spicy series in the division. It is Cleveland and Detroit. So there's an opportunity here for the White Sox later in the show as we preview the White Sox and Reds series, that the White Sox can even extend their lead even further depending on what happens between the Guardians and the Detroit Tigers. Now, with the Detroit Tigers being in second place, Jim, when I was watching Foul Territory today, AJ Pierzynski made a comment taking a look at the American League Central standings and also just the American League postseason race overall. And here come the Tigers. And if you look at run differential, the Tigers either have the best run differential or the second best run differential in all of the American League. So that just even raises more questions of what in the world is going on. Why are the Tigers still in this race after trading away Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize? And what fascinated me about Pierzynski's analysis about the situation, Jim, is that he said that it would be bad for baseball if the Detroit Tigers made the postseason because of what they did at the trade deadline. Do you agree with AJ Pierzynski? If the Tigers were able to either chase down the White Sox or earn one of the wild card spots in the American League, would that be bad for baseball?
It could be less fun for baseball. Maybe I wouldn't say bad because right now with the American League being in the shape that it's in, like it's there for the taking. Like the last
Yeah.
wild card spot, especially 500 and you're in. That's bad for baseball, I think, by default. So I think anybody, like, should the Tigers rally and really have in August and September, and we talked about this before on the show that the Tigers have sold before and won or gotten to the postseason when everybody thought they were giving in. So that's why I didn't rule them out necessarily. I thought trading both Mize and Skubal was putting a big dent. I thought Skubal himself, maybe not so much because it's once every 5 days.
Yeah.
And they've lost some of his starts before. So when you're talking about a 2-month sample, they can maybe work around that with the right players coming back. You're seeing Max Clark up as well. So they have some depth to pull from to make their team better, especially if guys hit the ground running, to where you could trade a Skubal and maybe just by sheer luck of sequencing, getting the run support on the right days, and you're seeing this with the run differential. It's like 37. They're plus 37 in August so far, being 6-2. That
Wow.
they can work around Skubal, being absent. Two of them, that's inviting some risk, but they've been pitching pretty well. We've seen AJ Hinch cobble together good pitching performances with openers and long relievers going one time through, piggybacking. Like, he's pretty creative in this regard. So they could probably do it again. But I mean, like, if the Tigers go, if they're gangbusters over the last 2 months and they win a wild card spot easily, that's probably worse for the American League than it is for baseball. If they win the wild card spot with like a 500 record, and they trade Skubal and they don't miss him, and the Dodgers don't do anything with Skubal, it does sap a little bit of trade deadline excitement. Just with the idea that and we saw Chris Getz talk about this, saying that the impact of one key addition is overblown, and the idea of having a killer trade deadline that makes your team meaningfully better is a little bit of more of a narrative than it is proven by performances. So perhaps, given how analytic everything is, how everybody looks for proof before really diving into something, that you might see the trade deadline become less and less of a thing. And maybe you might see more June trades or something like that to get more use out of a player or bail on a plan that isn't working and augment something. But I think we've seen this in the winter, just having less urgency for teams buying at the deadline makes things less fun. We're less urgency buying in the off season, with the hot stove season being a little bit of a misnomer at times with how long certain players can remain in the market. That's less fun. That's less action for teams. So yeah, I think this is the byproduct of the expanded postseason, to where you can make your team less impressive, or you can trade a player who is seemingly a titan, but just because the bar for postseason entry is so low, it's still probably worth trying, just because Scooble had no value for the Tigers after the season. The guys they acquired might/will, and the long game is probably worth playing, when in the short run, they may also benefit because the American League isn't good.
It's going to be wild, Jim, if this season ends with the current pace. 15 teams in this league, only 5 have a winning record. That would be wild. And I don't know what I would make of that. I would just say luck, but I'm hoping that teams would be able to bounce back with whenever the season starts in 2027. There's just so many teams that I just have so many questions. Like, is Toronto that exhausted from their postseason run last year? Baltimore traded away Adley Rushman. What is going on with Texas? Nathan Eovaldi is now on the injured list. Seattle's hit the regression pretty hard. There's chaos in Sacramento. They just fired a longtime employee, their general manager. So they're kind of directionless. The Angels are going with an interim GM. So I know everybody likes to make fun of the American League Central, but man, the American League West might be more of a dumpster fire of a division this year. I still think that there's some honor in the White Sox winning this division, especially with what they've had to endure the last 3 years. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's a bad thing if Detroit makes the postseason, because at the end of the day, Jim, somebody has to in this league. And I'm with you. I think it's a bigger deal if an 80 and 82 win team earns that 6th seed and they either have to face the White Sox or Astros in the wild card. Then I would say, yes, that's not a good look for the American League. And hopefully this is just one bad year for the league itself. That's my takeaway if the Tigers are able to sneak in.
Yeah, I think, the Mariners just not getting anything from Cal Raleigh all year.
That's
That's a
big.
pretty big blow based on the value he provided. Like, that's probably, I have to look it up to make sure, but in terms of wins above replacement,
One of the biggest
you
drops
take that,
ever.
yeah, you take that deficit, like, you can apply it directly to standings, and yeah, that flips the order quite a bit. The Blue Jays, yeah, you look at the teams that were loading up or expected to load up or be top heavy to where other teams didn't add or go nuts adding. And yeah, perhaps that's how you get this mediocrity, is with the good teams that were presumed to be good and carrying high payrolls sliding down, and nobody looking to be ahead of schedule. Like the White Sox weren't necessarily, aside from Murakami, that who kind of fell into their laps, but they weren't necessarily talking about 2026 until everything forced it on them. And the Twins, they had went through all that ownership turmoil. They talked a bigger game, but way late, to where everybody thought they were ruled out. But yeah, it's without the Mariners and Blue Jays being factors. The Orioles are already kind of a mystery, but I think the Seattle and Toronto not being the World
Yeah, I
Series
agree.
contenders everybody thought they were, nobody has stepped up to replace them.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. Good point. The White Sox and Tigers have a series this upcoming weekend in Detroit. It's the last time the White Sox visit Detroit. Last time did not go well over Father's Day weekend as the White Sox were swept. 3 games in Detroit, August 14th through the 16th. And then the final 4-game series will be in September 17th through the 20th. Right now, the series is tied. Both teams have swept at home. So that is a big series that, of course, we'll be previewing in our next episode of the Sox Machine podcast. But let's see what happens between Detroit and Cleveland this week. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors, but coming after the break, we're going to be talking about 2 White Sox players in particular and their recent performances. Anthony Kay, is he becoming more valuable? And why is Colson Montgomery struggling so much against right-handed pitching? Next on the Sox Machine podcast.
Science experiment for the 1 minute we have to tell you about why we love Quint's electrolytes, including watermelon salt, raspberry salt, and I'm holding a citrus salt. Just opened it. I'm going to pour some powder into my water, shake it up. And AJ, why do you love it?
I love Quince because after a long night out, a long day at the gym, a long walk in this Florida humidity, it tastes great and it gives me all the electrolytes I need. Why? Sugar-free, stevia-free, keto-approved, and tastes sweet because of that delicious fermented rice.
It does taste really good. I'm drinking it right now while we talk about it. It's also made in the USA, rigorously third-party tested. Give your body what it really needs to stay hydrated. Go to quince.com/foul for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/FOUL for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/foul. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I'm with Chicago shortstop Colson Montgomery. You're known as Team First.
Yeah, I've always worked hard for the team rather than myself.
I get it. If you've been injured, my team is here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal. That's Hagan law.
Welcome back to the Sox Machine podcast. Anthony Kay is starting to have a really solid season for the Chicago White Sox. After another strong start against Cleveland on Saturday, Anthony Kay this year has pitched 116 innings. His earned run average is 3.96, and his win-loss record is 9-5. And against left-handed pitching, Anthony Kay has been real solid, maybe even better than solid, as opposing left-handed hitters are only batting 197 with a 266 on base percentage and slugging just 276. Anthony Kay has only allowed 2 home runs this season against left-handed hitters, as he has 39 strikeouts to just 7 walks. And a fun fact about Anthony Kay: when the White Sox win and Anthony Kay starts, Kay is a big factor, as his earned run average in wins is just 1.80. So it's not like he's a mediocre pitcher and the White Sox offense is carrying him to victories. When the White Sox win his starts, it's because he is a factor in those starts. And when it comes to Anthony Kay, Jim, in his last 7 starts, Kay has a 3 even earned run average, 3.00 over 36 innings, and he's 3-2 in those 7 starts. And when I look at WAR on Fangraphs, WAR still thinks he's replacement level for a starting pitcher, below 1 WAR. Baseball Reference, because Fangraphs is very heavy on FIP, where Baseball Reference is not. For Baseball Reference, he's at 1.7 WAR. I think that's a little bit more fair. But pushing aside the advanced metrics for a moment here, with just, I don't want to say chaos, but just with how unsettled the White Sox starting pitching is Anthony Kay becoming more valuable for the Chicago White Sox as this season progresses?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, he's one of those lefties, I think, that can confound analytics, or at least like the kind of fit-based approach to analyzing pitchers, because he's lefty. He controls the running game pretty well. He's allowed 8 steals in 24 games now.
That's great.
So that's what the White Sox, I think, were hoping when they brought on Zach Bove and wanted to learn Kansas City's secret sauce in stopping the running game. And being lefty is a good cheat sheet for getting a head start on that. So that's one way that opponents don't take extra bases on him. He doesn't strike a ton of guys out, so that's another reason why he's never going to grade out that favorably in terms of Fangraphs WAR. He's only got 94 strikeouts over 116 innings. But when you look at his pitch mix, and I think this is especially evident against the Guardians, he was sweeper first. And especially over the course of the game, like, he started out more traditional with sinkers leading the way, but he's throwing 5 pitches. He's throwing them rather equally across the start. He was going fastball early and then diminishing the fastball over the course of the start. The sweeper takes the lead. So I think he's able to get more swings and misses with this approach, or at least swings and misses earlier in the count that maybe don't generate strikeouts, but do generate unfavorable counts to where hitters are on the defensive. Really the biggest weakness right now, and another thing kind of hampers his overall peripherals and makes him less statistically impressive, is that he walks his normal share of hitters. Maybe he's got a little below average walk rate, but he hits a ton of guys. So when you add
That
up
is
the
true.
amount of free bases he gets, it's like a 1.5 to 1 walk to free or strikeout to free base ratio. And that typically doesn't win, but I think it's one of those advantages that lefties have over righties. Like he's almost a left-handed Eric Fetty in a way, that he throws a little bit harder, but the four-seam velocity doesn't necessarily do it for him. He started out four-seam heavy because he had this improved velocity, and hitters told him it still isn't acting in a way that makes us think it's all that fast or getting on us all that quickly. And they turned it around, so he had to diversify his fastballs, and the four-seamer has taken a back seat recently. But I think, besides the two ticks, like it's still the same thing of, Fetty wants to have all sorts of sequences he can go to. And I think just with, especially against a lefty heavy lineup like Cleveland had, you get a lineup where they count on thumping righties with their lefties, and that doesn't help them. And then you watch the way K can mix it up enough to where he has out pitches against righties and lefties. And yeah, he might be a little bit contact reliant at times, or the counts might get deeper on him because he doesn't miss all that many bats, and so you get foul balls extending things. But in terms of getting crushed or having the starts that are disasters that put the bullpen in a real bind, I think he's slippery enough, kind of the crafty lefty, but one who can hit 96. So it's not that exact archetype, but the same kind of idea of just the pitchability has improved as he's grown to expand his arsenal and embrace all his pitches and figure out how to use them in all sorts of counts.
It's just wild, the ebbs and flows of this season, because at the beginning part of the season, we were like, why is Anthony K in the starting rotation? But here we are in August, Jim, and it's like, well, I'm confident in Sean Burke and Anthony K for the White Sox starting rotation. And it's not because of like last man standing. It's just that Anthony K has really stepped up his game to the point that, like, against the Guardians or the Tigers, as you mentioned, all of these left-handed, very heavy lineups that are in the American League, the White Sox are going to need Anthony K because he's just been really solid against lefties. And it feels like, again, we got the postseason schedule and we can look ahead because the White Sox are still at first place. Like, is Anthony K that game 3 starter? Maybe depends on the opposing team that you're facing. If they are heavy on lefties and they have weak right-handed bats on the bench, maybe he is your game 2 or maybe even game 1 starter, depending on how the dominoes fall, because you can be confident in Anthony K's ability to get those tough lefties out. And that, I just feel like it makes Will Venable's job a lot easier on, I trust Anthony K. Now when can I use Jordan Hicks and Grant Taylor and Huasco Brazoban, who they just got from the Mets? Like, how can I use those 3 to line up the rest of the game? And I think that's why the White Sox are finding so much success, is that Anthony K is doing a really good job, Jim, taking care of at least the first half of the game.
Yeah, and I think he deserved a spot in the rotation all year because of the lack of options. I think the thing was, do you have the standing to reject an opener or complain about it? That was my big question about him, was when, the Will Venable tried having an opener for him, given the early struggles, and he bristled at it and thought, oh, that's a choice, or that's a challenge. And no, he proved himself.
He stepped up.
He needed the runway. And I imagine entering the season, he probably thought he had runway. That's why he signed with the White Sox, because this team doesn't have starting pitchers. I should have time to figure it out. I think I can figure it out. And he figured it out.
And this has ended up being a really good signing. Like, yeah, nobody's beating the Murakami signing as far as quality. But when we review as far as this season, Chris Getz, I mean, cap tip, man, for how little Anthony K signed for, you're definitely getting some value out of this signing. The other player, not as positive, but he had a very positive result on Sunday, and that is Colson Montgomery. Colson Montgomery hit another home run this season. He has 26 homers, and that was the deciding factor. The White Sox went on Sunday. But against Cleveland this past weekend, Montgomery went 2 for 11 with 7 strikeouts. And what I noticed right away, Jim, while watching the games in the stadium, is that on-base percentage for Colson Montgomery has now dipped below 300 for the season. Montgomery's batting .215 with a 296 on base percentage and slugging 445, despite having 26 home runs this year, which also, congratulations to Colson Montgomery. He's the second ever shortstop in franchise history for the Chicago White Sox to hit 25 or more home runs, joining Jose Valentin. And Montgomery's got 68 RBIs, but his weighted runs created plus is just 104. And it's just, it kind of hurts my head that somebody with this much power is only 4% better than league average offensively, has made me take a deep dive in what is going on, Jim, with Colson Montgomery. And what I discovered after all this conversation about Munetaka Murakami and how well he's hitting velocity this year, Colson Montgomery is not, especially against right-handed pitchers. Right-handed pitchers with the four-seam fastball that are throwing harder than 95 miles an hour against Colson Montgomery this year. Montgomery is batting 115. 115. With a 181 on base percentage and slugging just 195. He is whiffing more than 37% of the time. And Jim, I don't know if I'm to the point that this is me canary in the coal mine when I broke down the analysis for Andrew Vaughn. And oh my gosh, Andrew Vaughn cannot hit breaking pitches against right-handed pitching. But it is very drastic that despite hitting 26 homers this year, Montgomery's got a really good chance of reaching even 35 home runs this season, that the drop-off in production for Colson Montgomery against right-handed pitching makes me a bit concerned. But what I'm not exactly sure about, and I'm speaking openly, so for podcast listeners, or those that are watching on video, let me know your guys' thoughts as well, because I'm speaking aloud here, brainstorming aloud. Let us know in the comment section how you feel about what I'm about to say. But knowing the White Sox three pillars of their hitting program, decisions, contact, power. We know that Montgomery's got power, Jim. But what's the, not to sound like Jerry Seinfeld, what's the deal with Colson Montgomery against right-handed pitchers this year and velocity? Is this a swing decision problem? Or is this just his swing in general, that his swing is just not conducive to be able to hit velocity?
I think it might be his swing in general, maybe not velocity necessarily, but there are a lot of holes, or at least there are holes that he has to think about, he has to be conscious of. And so it might make him more susceptible to velocity. Not that his bat's too slow to catch up with the velocity, but maybe he has to cover so much that he just is behind. Like if he's thinking about an off-speed pitch of having to have a plan to spoil it, he's not going to be on time to damage a fastball, and he gets into enough two-strike counts to where he might have to be a little bit more conscious of contact, even though he does strike out a bunch and it doesn't seem to bother him. But that would be my guess, one, in terms of like why he's not covering velocity. It's not so much, it's more of a matter of how many swings and misses in his contact rate overall versus anything that's purely velocity based. The other thing is that there's, I think, a line of demarcation in terms of when he had that brief absence, didn't go on the IL, but he had the back stiffness in early June. And since then, he's had some games here and there. He's hit 10 homers over the stretch. So he's not like a zero, but it's a sub 700 OPS. I'm looking at it now, 203 average, 401 slugging.
And this is after his back injury.
Yes. And, I think he's playing through it. I think he's managing it, but I do wonder, given that he already had contact issues in the minors, and that was the idea, when of the skeptics, like Keith Law would talk about how he didn't look the same since he had those back and oblique problems a few years ago as a prospect. Then he had the Arizona reset, and that changed a lot of things. But back then, it was a case where he doesn't look that athletic. He's not generating contact. And so I think there's a case where if he is not 100%, and a lot of players aren't over the course of a year with various things, this isn't like necessarily a Colson Montgomery back alarmist issue that I'm raising, but just it's one of those cases where if he is playing at like 85%, you throw in the shin bruises as well, the repeated beating that his shin has taken on foul balls.
Good point.
If he doesn't have like his best athleticism and he's somebody who's prone to having these holes in his swing, is his swing more rigid or less adjustable because he doesn't have his body firing exactly how he wants to? That's just
Okay.
something I would bring up to be like over the last few months we've been watching him in this kind of line between game 64, which he had a 800 OPS and looked like an all-star,
Yeah.
versus this more mediocre version or ordinary version in the games that have followed.
Yeah, because you go to Baseball Savant and the Savant team, I love you guys. The amount of data and visuals that you provide, I didn't even know this existed until I did this deep dive, Jim. So for those that are listening to the podcast, go to baseballsavant.com and look up Colson Montgomery. If you scroll to the bottom, you're going to get his swing profile. And what Baseball Savant could tell you is if a hitter, depending on pitcher handiness and the type of pitch, are they tied up or flailing at a pitch? Is their bat ahead or behind certain pitches? And is their bat over or under pitches? And it does compare you to league average. And it seems that Colson Montgomery is pretty league average when it comes to timing of the fastballs, where he's slightly late. And when it comes to over under, that he is more times underneath the fastball, and that passes the eye test, right? Podcast listeners, like if you watch Colson Montgomery strike out on elevated fastballs, he's swinging underneath the fastball. So that totally scans. He's more tied up on fastballs where it seems like he's jamming himself, especially on fastballs over the heart of the plate. And is this the case of like, is he still swinging with a torpedo bat? And if he's not, Jim, does he need to go back to the torpedo bat to take advantage? Because last year against fastballs, the batting average wasn't that big of a difference. He batted 217 in 2025 against right-handed fastballs, but he slugged 518. This year, he's just slugging 429. And I mentioned the fastballs because against right-handed pitching, Colson Montgomery is seeing 56% fastballs. I mean, that's the majority of time. When he steps in the plate, Jim, if I was Derek Showman, the hitting coach of the White Sox, dude, fastballs. Like, I know you are struggling against breaking pitches, and that's a whole podcast episode in itself. Listeners, this year against right-handed breaking pitches, Colson Montgomery's batting just 129 and slugging just 258. This is after he hit 333 against breaking pitches from righties last year and slugged 756. That's also a big factor here. But if the majority of the time you're on the plate against right-handed pitching and you're seeing fastball 56% of the time, Jim, this is the one area that I would like Colson Montgomery to start getting more success from. But maybe it is, to your point, it's the swing, and it's the swing because he's not 100%, and something physically is impacting his ability at the plate.
Yeah, it's not necessarily unfounded. It's just comparing his history, and if he needs athleticism or if his swing has been said to be not athletic, then it could be a case where he needs to be, or at least he needs to learn when he's not 100%, how to maybe manipulate his swing just a little bit more to cover more pitches and provide more useful contact. Because to the point of fastballs, it does seem like they can, if not get him to swing and miss on a fastball, pop them up. That's nearly as bad as a strikeout. It's like useless contact. So it does make sense for them to go, up on fastballs, thinking that, just the way his bat path is, that as long as they have the velocity to do it and they have enough to keep them honest, that there are cheap outs to be had.
Again, let us know either in the comment section at soxmachine.com or if you're watching this on YouTube, what you guys are thinking of what's ailing Colson Montgomery. Again, the numbers are pretty solid. Again, he's got a chance to hit 35 homers this year, but with his on-base percentage below 300, and that's dragging his OPS down, Colson should be having better offensive numbers for the White Sox. And yeah, he had a great moment on Sunday, but 2 for 11 with 7 strikeouts. The White Sox, if they're going to hold off everybody in this division, really could use Colson Montgomery going on another heater. We're going to take one last break for a word from our sponsors, but coming after the break, we're going to preview this week's series for the Chicago White Sox as the Cincinnati Reds roll into town next on the Sox Machine podcast.
This is that time of year, AJ. It is baseball's time to shine. And it is SeatGeek's time to shine with MLB tickets and finding the best pricing, seating, and games that are even sold out available on SeatGeek.
Absolutely. If you want to go to the biggest matchups coming up, we have Yankees Cubs coming up. There's Yankees Red Sox. It means stuff again. There's some big moments that are coming up here, and as the pennant chases really heat up, go to SeatGeek and find those green tickets with the best deals and get yourself out to an MLB game.
Yeah, and they're straightforward with you. They will actually put a red dot next to a ticket that they don't feel is your best look. Green dot means very good. Code for you. It's Territory 10. 10% off your next set of MLB tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off MLB tickets when you use the promo code Territory10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later.
Now we preview this week's series for the Chicago White Sox as the Cincinnati Reds roll into town. The Cincinnati Reds are 56-61 this season. They have lost their last 3 games. They've been playing better, though, as of late. In their last 10, they are 6-4. Not a very strong road team this year. They are 27-30 away from Cincinnati. Your probable pitchers for this series in the first game on Tuesday. This is the Pope Hat night. So if you have a ticket to this game, they're expecting a full sellout. They have over 40,000 Pope hats to give out to fans. So this should be a very festive atmosphere again for the White Sox. For the Reds, it's left-hander Nick Lodolo taking the ball. It'll be Sean Burke for the White Sox. On Wednesday, it'll be Rhett Lauder, the righty for the Cincinnati Reds, and it'll be Luis Castillo in his second start and his first home start since being traded to the Chicago White Sox. And on Thursday, a true getaway day. This is a 1:10 p.m. Central Time start. It's going to be lefty Andrew Abbott for the Cincinnati Reds. Right now, I'm going to guess that this is going to be a bullpen game for the White Sox. Eric Fetty could be part of the mix. We should be seeing Tanner McDougal at some point in this series. Maybe Hagan Smith gets another opportunity for the White Sox to eat up a couple of innings before they head out to Detroit. So I could see the White Sox using Thursday as a bullpen game and saving some of their starters for the big weekend series against the Tigers. But White Sox and Reds, and Jim, I'll do my best to get you a Pope Hat. I know you really want a White Sox Pope Hat. But for the White Sox and in this series against the Reds are kind of a fascinating team to me. Fascinating in the sense that they should be better. Ever since Terry Francona took that job, I thought the Cincinnati Reds would be a lot better. But while they're 5th in home runs this year, 154, they only score 4.11 runs per game. They rank 23rd in team OPS at 706, and their pitching is very mediocre. The starters have a 4.47 earned run average. That's good for 23rd in Major League Baseball. Their bullpen is worse, 4.52, 25th in Major League Baseball. So on paper, this should be a series win for the Chicago White Sox, but we try not to take anything for granted for the White Sox. But I'm curious when watching this series, I think there's going to be a lot of attention on Luis Castillo and what he does at home in his second start. What are you watching for in particular when watching Castillo?
Length, I guess. Just how long he can last into a game.
Okay, not extension. When you said length, I thought you meant extension, but innings. Okay.
Yeah, no, I meant just in terms of going deep into a game, being able to throw more than 70 pitches would be ideal. Like the idea of bringing him in, bringing in a veteran who has experience, has had plenty of successes, that he needs to be theoretically managed less. And so if you're looking at him as a 2026 boost versus a 2027 project, you would expect to have a lower maintenance pitcher to be able to go 5, 6, approach 100 pitches and not really think about it. So that's what I'm looking for. Otherwise, I'm more or less learning about him, trying to figure out, like, can he throw something besides a fastball that is effective? Does he have the changeup? What's his route for getting out of this rut that he's been in with the Mariners? Is it a decline, or is it something where he just needs to, and it might be an off-season project, but just might need to rediscover pitch releases in order to get a feel for his changeup back, since he really went fastball slider with Seattle. That's more or less what I'm looking for. Still learning about him. He's still new, and I think he should be somebody who, if he's better, he'll look like a different pitcher, not the pitcher that he has been in terms of what he throws. The Reds are fascinating just because, like, they are, I would say they're like a good keep you honest team. They're below 500, but you look at the pitchers they're throwing, like, there's prospect pedigree there.
Yes.
There's a history of stuff to where, like, Lodolo, like, yeah, having him as a lefty, that'll test the White Sox ability to hit left-handed pitching. Louder, just, he's not good this year, but again, a guy who's been in plenty of trade packages, especially when the White Sox had guys to trade. We're trying to find that perfect trade partner, especially for, like, Luis Robert, Dylan Cease, etc. Like, we heard a lot of these guys' names as possible returns. So the White Sox should be able to hit them, but they are accomplished enough, I think, or have had some moments in the majors to where the White Sox have to take them seriously. Also, the Pope Hat thing, going like full Catholic on Tuesday. There's a little bit of, my culture is not your costume thought process with me in terms of, like, this is going heavy. But yeah, I think geographically speaking, like, this is the one area where you can get away with it, where everybody knows the deal. Like the, what do they call it? The fifth inning, peace be with you. Fascinating. Like, just, I would like to be there for that. Like, I would buy a ticket, not necessarily for the Pope Hat, but for that, to see what exactly does it feel like out of the context that I'm accustomed to it being. Although I would put it like in the 8th inning versus the 5th, because that's like the home stretch of Mass, is when you get to the handshakes and be like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, versus, after the 7th inning stretch, like, yeah, like maybe between the top of the 8th and bottom of the 8th. That's when I would go for it, because that's when you, especially when you're a kid and you're just like, why am I here? Then you get the handshakes, like, okay, the talk's over with. You get communion. You get the little bit of a wrap up, a post game show, and then you're on your way to donuts or whatever your Sunday morning tradition is. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the firsthand reports. Please let me know in the comments. Tag me in tweets or skeets, what have you, about like what that is actually like, especially if you are accustomed to the real thing.
Yep, I will be there. So if you are going to the game, find me. There's going to be only 40,000 of us. There's going to be a ton of people, but my wife went to Catholic school, elementary, middle, and high school. So I have to get her the White Sox Pope hat. My mother-in-law really wants one as well. It's just going to be, again, it's fascinating. Obviously, there's a lot of religious tie-in here. And this is very capitalistic of the White Sox to take advantage of having a Chicago Pope. I think they're stepping on the line. But again, let us know how you guys feel. I think overall it's going to be very fun and festive. But if they do this every single season, it could get, I could see where it can go wayward.
So many people have their Halloween costumes this year.
They really do. There's going to be a lot.
This hat completes it. Just makes it so easy. A Sox jersey, a Pope hat. I'm ready to go on a bar crawl.
You sure can. Or if you're a big fan of the metal band Ghost, there you go. You could be the lead singer. Paint your face. Get the White Sox Pope hat. That'd be pretty awesome. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, let us know in the comment section if you go. Tag us on social media if you do get a Pope hat. But that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine podcast. We'll be recapping this series later this week, in which you'll be able to listen to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. But you can also watch the show now. It is a video podcast. Subscribe to your YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the social media platforms at Sox Machine. James Fegan will be covering the games for us at SoxMachine.com. You can follow him at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. And if you enjoy our work, you want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox and Major League Baseball, sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber at SoxMachine.com/products, in which right now your first month is just 53 cents. After that, it's just $5 a month. That gets you the full access to all of our coverage and also be able to comment on SoxMachine.com, and also gets you the ad-free version of the website and also the audio podcast as well. So if you want an ads-free audio podcast, you can subscribe to soxmachine.com/products to be able to have access to that. And we also have a couple spots open in our Veterans Committee, which I plugged in our previous episode as we hosted a annual Sweet Night with them. So if you're interested in helping shape Sox Machine in our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, especially with this upcoming postseason race, you can inquire within at soxmachine.com/products. The Sox Machine podcast is a production of soxmachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball, and part of the Foul Territory Network. Alongside Jim Margalus, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.